Ever get the feeling some people could convince you of just about anything?
Some people are just very good at making you want to believe them.
Today's deep dive is a doozy, someone who really takes the cake in the believing the unbelievable department. We're talking to O'Delia Diss Debar.
Diss Debar.
She was a real pro, a Gilded Age grifter who pulled off some truly audacious cons.
And she got away with it for years.
We're talking 2 continents, a long list of victims, all wondering how they fell under her spell.
What makes her story so interesting, even now, is how she tapped into the desires and anxieties of her time. She knew exactly what made people tick.
So to really get her, we need to understand the world she was operating in. Okay, picture this. Late 19th century Victorian era in full swing.
Think top hats, bustles, and a fascination with all things spiritual.
Right. But this wasn't just some fringe interest. We're talking seances, spirit photography, the whole bit. And it wasn't just back alley stuff either. Even wealthy, educated folks were caught up in it.
Absolutely. You have to remember, the Industrial Revolution was shaking things up. It created a lot of anxiety and uncertainty. People were looking for something more, something beyond the material world.
I guess the idea of talking to your dearly departed had a certain appeal.
Absolutely. It offered comfort, closure, and maybe even a peek behind the curtain of the afterlife.
Enter O'Delia Diss Debar with her ever-changing identities and unbelievable claims. She swooped in on this wave of spiritualism, offering exactly what people wanted, even if it was too good to be true.
One of the most intriguing things about Diss Debar is the mystery surrounding her past. Even basic details like her birthplace and parents are fuzzy.
It's like she plucked different origin stories out of a hat. Was she born in Kentucky? Italy? Was she a runaway? Or did she really have royal blood, like she sometimes implied?
It's almost impossible to separate fact from fiction.
Sounds like she had a talent for creating smoke and mirrors around her own life. But I'm guessing that wasn't an accident.
Definitely not. This lack of clear information was a common tactic for con artists. It gave them control over their narrative, allowing them to invent a past that fit their goals.
Especially if those goals involved charming their way into people's wallets.
Precisely. And for those seeking the extraordinary, a touch of mystery just made the bait more tempting.
So she was like a blank canvas people could project their own fantasies onto.
Exactly. And she used this to her advantage, constantly changing her name, crafting a persona to fit each mark. Swami Vivekananda, Princess Editha Lolita, you name it.
I'm picturing myself at a dinner party with Princess Editha Lolita. What stories she must have told. You can't deny the names were catchy.
Oh, absolutely. Each one was designed to pique your curiosity, make you want to know more, to draw you into her web.
She was like a chameleon, changing her colors to blend in with her surroundings.
And she had the charisma to pull it off. But Diss Debar didn't just offer a friendly face and a fabricated past. She offered something much more enticing, something irresistible to those hungry for the extraordinary.
Chance to connect with the other side.
Exactly. She wasn't just some fortune teller reading tea leaves. She was a direct line to the greatest artists in history, or so she claimed.
This is where those infamous spirit paintings come into play, right?
Yeah.
The ones she claimed were channeled directly from the masters, Raphael, Rembrandt. I mean, come on.
Oh, it was a brilliant scheme. And her most famous mark fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Luther R. Marsh, a legal giant, student of Daniel Webster no less, a man who'd built his reputation on logic and evidence. Even he couldn't resist Diss Debar's charms.
You'd think someone like that, a lawyer no less, would see right through her.
That's the thing about con artists like Diss Debar. They don't just target the naive or the gullible. They prey on desire. In Marsh's case, it seems he longed for a connection to something bigger, something extraordinary.
He wanted a piece of history, a touch of genius.
Exactly. And Diss Debar gave him that, or at least the illusion of it. She convinced him he was witnessing the creation of masterpieces, channeled through her.
And he bought it, literally. I mean, she got him to sign over his fancy townhouse on Madison Avenue. That's insane.
It's a good reminder that anyone, no matter how smart or successful, can fall prey to a skilled manipulator. Diss Debar understood that logic and reason often crumble when faced with powerful emotions, greed, loneliness, fear, even hope.
So she was a master at pushing those buttons, getting people to act against their better judgment.
Oh, absolutely. And if anyone dared to question her, to suggest she wasn't the real deal, she had a whole arsenal of excuses at the ready. The spirits were angry, or maybe skeptics were interfering with the delicate balance. It was never her fault, always some external force.
It's amazing she got away with it for so long. She even busted out of jail. More than once. like something out of a movie.
Talk about adding to the mystique. Those jailbreaks were pure Hollywood. But her luck, as they say, couldn't last forever. Even in a world obsessed with the spiritual, there were those who saw through Diss Debar's charade.
And they weren't about to let her get away with it. But here's the twist. The people who finally decided to expose Diss Debar for the fraud she was, well, they weren't your typical skeptics.
They were magicians.
Now, that's kind of perfect when you think about it. It takes one to know one.
Exactly. They could see through her tricks because they knew how those tricks were done. They understood illusion and misdirection. In a way, they were uniquely qualified to call her out.
Yeah, talk about knowing your enemy. But did these magician detectives ever come face to face with Diss Debar? Like a showdown between illusion and truth?
While there wasn't a dramatic confrontation, one magician made it his personal mission to expose her. John Mulholland dedicated a whole chapter to Diss Debar in his book, Beware Familiar Spirits. Talk about a takedown. He meticulously picked apart her tricks and revealed the methods behind her madness.
So he was like, hold my beer, I'll expose this so-called spirit whisperer.
Pretty much. And what's interesting is that Mulholland didn't just focus on the mechanics of her deceptions. He dug into the psychology behind why people fell for them.
Because a good con is more than just smoke and mirrors, right? It's about understanding what makes people tick.
Exactly. He knew Diss Debar's real power wasn't just about faking paintings or conjuring spirits. It was about tapping into those deep-seated human desires. The longing for connection, the fear of death, the hope for something more.
It's like she was a dealer in dreams, and she knew exactly which ones her customers wanted to buy.
A brilliant analogy. And what's unsettling is that even though we live in a different time, with endless information at our fingertips, those vulnerabilities Diss Debar exploited haven't gone away.
You're saying even with all our fact-checking and skepticism, we're still easy marks.
In some ways, yes. Think about it. We're bombarded with information constantly, much of it designed to manipulate or mislead us. It's the digital age's version of Diss Debar's smoke and mirrors.
Wow, it's like her playbook got a 21st century upgrade.
Exactly. And that's why it's more crucial than ever to be critical thinkers, to question what we see and hear, and to be wary of anyone claiming to have all the answers, especially when those answers seem too good to be true.
So what's the takeaway here? What can we learn from a master manipulator like Diss Debar, someone who built a career on deception?
Her story is a powerful reminder that critical thinking is a muscle we need to exercise. The more we understand about the tactics of deception, the psychology of belief, and the vulnerabilities that con artists target, the better equipped we are to spot them.
It's like that saying, knowledge is power, right? The more we know about deception, the less likely we are to be deceived.
Precisely. We can protect ourselves and each other by becoming more aware.
Well, there you have it. O'Delia Diss Debar, the Gilded Age grifter, who spun illusions out of thin air and charmed her way into fortune. She might be a figure from the past, but her story is a potent reminder to stay curious, stay skeptical, and maybe think twice before buying that one-of-a-kind masterpiece online.